Dissociation is something that the human mind has the capability of doing that happens mildly for everybody. You can think of the dissociation that everybody experiences by considering what people call highway hypnosis, where you're driving and you zone out while you're driving and don't really remember taking the route. You just end up at your destination. So that's an example of dissociation that most everybody experiences, and it's not considered disordered. Dissociation on that level, it's basically a way for the human brain to filter out stimuli that it doesn't need to consciously process, and allows you to consciously register only what's needed and save energy. Some people can develop what are known as dissociative disorders, where the brain starts to rely on this mechanism of dissociation in periods of stress, and it becomes a chronic coping skill. Dissociative disorders can occur in people when they go through chronic, prolonged stress that they feel otherwise unable to escape. The brain can rely on dissociation to detach awareness from a threat or experience that would otherwise be overwhelming to consciously process. Dissociation can become more chronic in instances of complex CPTSD and prolonged trauma in childhood, especially when the child sees the caregiver as a threat, because the child also needs the caregiver for survival. Children naturally rely more on dissociation because they're small and defenseless, and they don't always have the ability to fight or run. So in that case, the child's brain can learn to dissociate awareness of the threat posed by the caregiver in order for them to still be able to attach to the caregiver enough to get their survival needs met. Survival needs can include food and water and shelter, and also love and healthy attachment from caregivers. So dissociation and dissociative disorders can form in children when their caregivers do not meet their dependency needs. If the child's physical or emotional needs are not met, it can be advantageous for the brain during childhood to dissociate awareness of those unmet needs, so the child can continue to function as well as possible in that environment that they can't escape. Children are so dependent on caregivers, it's actually a matter of survival for them to be able to connect with their caregivers enough to receive the care that they need to survive. So the mind can disconnect from awareness experiences that would hinder the attachment between the child and the primary caregiver for the child's survival. This can occur when the child sees the caregiver as a threat, but also needs to connect to them for survival, so the threat from the caregiver will be dissociated. For example, in instances of childhood trauma involving emotional abuse, a child may disconnect and dissociate from emotions, and their emotions may come to be held in disconnected parts of the psyche. This way the child can continue to survive in an environment with emotional abuse, and parts of the psyche will be shielded from this emotional abuse by being disconnected from the emotions themselves. Depersonalization and derealization can be very useful coping mechanisms employed by the brain during childhood trauma, because when overwhelming experiences are detached, it makes life more livable for that time period, and it's a short-term solution because it can lead to more complex problems later. In the present, it is an adaptive coping skill. Dissociative disorders include depersonalization and derealization, and then otherwise specified dissociative disorder and dissociative identity disorder. With depersonalization and derealization, individuals experience a sense of them being unreal or the world around them being unreal. They feel detached from their bodies or detached from their environment, as if there's a glass wall between you and the world. They may feel detached from all their emotions and just feel numb, detached from physical body sensations, If depersonalization and derealization are used in a chronic way before the personality is fully integrated, then the personality can actually fail to fully integrate, and so experiences can remain disintegrated. This happens when certain experiences are too overwhelming to integrate into the psyche, and the psyche, as a coping mechanism, keeps them disintegrated. And then that overall person can end up developing multiple senses of self instead of one unified sense of self. This can lead to dissociative identity disorder, or the closely related, otherwise specified dissociative disorder. Dissociative identity disorder has amnesia between parts of the psyche, and this can be full amnesia, which is like a blackout, or partial amnesia, which can be that the person is aware of maybe the objective experience, but not aware of the emotions felt during that experience. So certain aspects of an experience may be disconnected from awareness through amnesia. And then otherwise specified dissociative disorder, there isn't this amnesia between parts. This dissociation that happens during overwhelming experiences actually has a neurological basis. During overwhelming traumatic experiences, the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory recording and formation, can shut down to the point that the person cannot consciously process the memories, and these memories will not become attached to their own sense of self. Memories can be integrated or disintegrated. They can be personalized or depersonalized. So when you have an experience in life, it usually becomes personalized. So you see it as happening to you, it feels real, and you can connect it to your overall sense of self and life story. But if there are experiences that are traumatically overwhelming, the experience will become depersonalized. So it will not seem attached to your own sense of self or life story. It can feel like it was a dream or like it happened to somebody else. There may be some awareness of the experience, or the experience can be completely dissociated, so awareness will be removed and it will be forgotten about until it arises at a later time when you are more safely able to process the experience. So when experiences have to be continually depersonalized and derealized, dissociated from, those can go into other parts of the psyche instead. This happens even in CPTSD. You can see fragmented parts of the psyche that hold just emotional states or sensory experiences, and this is the basis for flashbacks, when these disconnected materials become connected through a trigger and you will re-experience them. Flashbacks happen because the memory is encoded differently, so when it gets connected to your awareness, you will experience it as happening in the present because it hasn't yet been encoded as a past memory. Different aspects of consciousness are relegated into dissociated parts of the mind, so the individual doesn't have to consciously face them. This is adaptive in childhood when the situation leading to dissociation maybe can't be escaped. But then this becomes a lot more maladaptive in adulthood, because as an adult you have agency and the ability to take the reins in your own life, but if you're in a chronic state of dissociation and detachment, that can leave you stuck in those feelings of the past, and you can still believe that you don't have agency, and it can lead you to feel out of control and hopeless. So an important part of recovery is learning to reconnect to that sense of agency and autonomy in your life, and realizing that you do have the ability to exert change in the external world now.